go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Crossroads of Cognizance, the one stop shop where we talk about all things metaphysical, emotional, mental health, wellness, spiritual, and we just shoot the shit here and um, share what you guys all want to know about. Sometimes we do readings on here. I mean, it gets pretty interesting, but either way, welcome to our little corner of the internet where we're building a little community of folks that are just seeking truth and sharing experiences. So, with that in mind, if this is your first time joining us, let's get the technicalities out of the way. We want to hear from you for sure. But you're going to have to hit that like and subscribe button, and you're going to have to hit the broadcast if you're on Facebook, because Facebook has weird rules and this might be shared somewhere. And so, if you want to join in, you want your comments to pop up, you want us to acknowledge you, we're going to have to see that by you clicking on the video. And if you're on YouTube, we'll see you anyway. So, here we are once again, and we are two halves of one whole here. Let us introduce ourselves. I am Dahlia Rose over here on the East Coast, holding down the fort at my house, and that's what we're going to talk about today, because a lot has changed in this season of stillness, and I'm still carrying out healing sessions, supporting others, doing readings, teaching primarily. That's the biggest thing. But still being my same old mystical, your magical auntie self. And I have lovely co-hosts here with me.
Hi, everybody. I'm Katrina Raspold. I'm half of Crossroads Occult, and my hubby is the other half. And we sell handmade magical craft items on crossroadsoccult.com. I also do certain magical services like spell work for people, cleansings for people, astrology charts, readings, all that sort of thing. And love being semi-retired and no longer having a shop to go to every day and be tied to, so that I can do some traveling and get up when I want to and not go out on days like today where it's beautiful and stormy and I can watch it all from inside. It's wonderful. I don't know if you knew this. There was a time when I first had a magical store, metaphysical store, that we were at a farmer's market called Denio's. It was an hour and a half's drive from my house in Roseville, California. Because it was a farmer's market, we had to be there ready to roll, completely set up at 7 a.m.
Oh my God.
And we had one of the few, well, I think it was actually the only position in the farmer's market. And this is like an 80-acre swap meet, basically, that had a building that you could close, you could lock the door. So when
nice.
we left, we could just lock the door, roll our stuff inside because we had some things outside, just to catch people's attention, take everything inside, shut the door and leave. All of the other places were kind of itinerant where they're putting up pop-ups and this sort of thing. But we had an actual building. And on days like today, where it's raining and it's cold and it's foggy, you just weren't going to have a lot of people out walking around a swap meet. And so it would be super, super dead, super quiet. But it was lovely, because we had a tin roof. You heard the rain on the roof. And mostly at that point, it was vendors that would come around and buy from each other, because we're usually busy with customers and can't go shop at the different little places. And we did that for about 3.5 years. And it was a fascinating, amazing experience. But we knew when it was done. Certain things started to come up, like the swap meet decided that they were going to double their parking prices. And admittedly, it went from $2 a car to $4 a car. So it wasn't a huge increase, but it was enough that a lot of people went, whoa, we have Amazon now. We don't need to pay to go shopping.
And well, anytime you change the financials, it makes people think.
So it was, a lot of things like that had Eric and I kind of thinking, we're driving so far to get here. We're having to get up so early in the morning. We can only be open on Saturdays and Sundays, which left us the full week, but still, it's limiting. And we were also contracted as what they called like their cornerstone tenants, that we had to be there every weekend. If you were not going to be there, you had to call in. You had to really have a really good reason. It had to get approved, or you were fined. And so it was a process and it was an obligation. But we kind of knew when it was done. It was still month to month, but we knew when it was done. And I've always said that Eric and I know when to leave a party. We just have had this sense of, gosh, I like doing this, but I think we're supposed to not do this anymore. The same thing happened when we had a coven. We ran a coven for 20 years. And there were a few people that were there for, 15, 18 of those years. And we kind of hit a place where I got this knowing during a ritual, or as I was setting up for a ritual, that said, you're done. You're not going to be doing this next time. You need to hand this off. And it was very stunning. We weren't really ready for that because we hadn't had a thought the day before that it was going to happen even.
Wow.
And so we have gotten to the place where we communicate very well about potential endings and of course about new ventures as well, which I intend to have none of. I want to be done. He's still excited. He's still doing things. I kind of feel like, I kind of want to just pare down on what I'm doing. I don't want to build up what I'm doing. But, it's such an amazing feeling when you are tied in with deity or your ancestors or whoever is coaching you, and you get that message, you're done. And if you don't act on this, we're going to make the decision for you. And it's not going to possibly be as comfortable as you making the decision. But that doesn't mean it's comfortable when you're letting go of something you built and something you did and something you've established. And that free fall that happens, and I'm just battling, that free fall that happens when you decide to listen to that prompting. And everybody around you is saying, why this is working? Why are you doing this? Why are you quitting? Right. And I don't know, Jesus told me to, or like whatever, I was in right in the middle of Carradon's cauldron and then found out in meditation that I'm supposed to do this. So the reason I'm bringing that up is that there's two reasons. One is that 2 weeks ago, we had the November full moon. Mm-hmm. And the November full moon, and this is based on Grandmother Moon, which is Susanna Budapest's amazing book on moon cycles, is set up as the morning moon. And so we get excited. I mean, for me as a witch, one of the things we like to do is burn shit. And so a lot of our rituals involve burning stuff. We release energy by burning things and pieces of paper and petitions and, poppets and things like that. So at Samhain, which is October 31st, we burn off what we want to release to the dark of the year. Like, what are you not taking with you? What isn't working? Or what are you being encouraged to release? And then 2 weeks later, you've probably had some time to miss it and to be sad about it and to think, what the hell was I doing? And so it just happens that there's this full moon that illuminates your mourning and your grieving and says, hey, this is okay. It's okay that you're sad right now. And it's called the morning moon. So not as in good morning, it's morning, but I'm mourning, I'm grieving. So this is a time when a lot of people, often even not witchy people, are letting go of stuff and releasing stuff and having major life changes happen. And it lets us go into that dark of the year kind of unfettered and thinking and deciding what we want to plant in the spring when life starts to come back again. What do we want that to look like?
Right.
And that being the case, I'd like to discuss your new background, please.
Why is Dahlia not at Crystal
And
Cognizance?
why
Well,
isn't Dahlia answering messages lately?
you know, the timing of things, the synchronicity of things is never, it's never a dull moment when, I a lot of folks want to sort of declare synchronicities as a spirituality kind of thing. And for me, it shows up as a opportunity to, it's about the slowdown. you know if I wasn't doing spiritual work, if my life was moving slow enough, I would be able to still notice the synchronicities and still go through shifts and changes with a watchful eye. And so, with that in mind, my background, it how do I say this? I'll just say it. I decided after 5 long years to go ahead and close Crystal Cognizance's physical location. So, um, this year on August, I decided that I was toying with the idea. Like, I was in meditation and I was um, getting messages about things needing to change and needing to let go of something major, and you know not really knowing what that meant. I mean, when spirit tells you to let go of something major, it can be a little it can give you a lot of apprehension. You're like, okay, well, I just got comfortable. What do you mean? What exactly could I be letting go of? And the messages kept coming. I had, for the first time, I had a tea leaf reading that reflected that. I usually set up my birthday that way. I think I've talked about that a number of times on the show. And so I had my yearly astrology done and all of these things. And then there were other random synchronicities. Like, sometimes I'll watch tarot card readers online, and those are not specific readings, they're general, but they all said the same thing: letting go, letting go, letting go. And so on October 6th, I went ahead and messaged the appropriate people and basically said, like, hey, I'm just not going to renew my lease. And I kept quiet about it because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure how folks were going to take it. I needed to really gain an understanding of what that looked like, because originally, as part of letting things go, I was getting messages to stop doing healing work. And I was devastated because it is, for me, that service is my gift to others. And it was like I didn't want to take it away from people, but then I had to also evaluate, like, my connection to it, my identity in it, my ego in it, and all of these things. And so, I was like, I've been doing this for 5 years. What do you mean just stop? And so, letting the shopping center know, letting a few close people know that that's the direction that things were heading. And it was nice having the community around me to check in every now and again, because, as you know, as a Virgo, I was just like, head down, tunnel vision. I don't want to annoy anybody. I'm going to do this myself. But I had a lot of lovely people, just like, Katrina included, that were just like, hey, how you doing? um, but that's the big news, is that we had everything, heavy and light products, all that, moved out by Monday. And
Wow.
Tuesday was spent cleaning up. Wednesday was, I had lettering on the wall. If you go back and look at some of the videos on Crossroads of Cognizance, you'll see a saying that I had on the wall that basically talked about helping one person at a time through different stages of life, trying to heal the world, all of that. And that was given to me in Hawaii the July before I opened the shop. So we put it up on the wall with vinyl, and I spent yesterday an hour peeling off each letter. And it was it was a high and low process. So, like I said, news was given October 6th. And I would say the grieving process, because it was grieving, didn't start until the beginning of November, and then it started to ramp up. Poor Katrina, every Thursday we'd get on and I'd be like, "Ah," and she'd be like, "It's gonna be okay," and, holding my hand through it all. And what was interesting about the process was, like what you were saying, Katrina, is that there are two things existing at the same time, and I have to attribute um, embodiment work that I had learned, and then having the magical community around me. It was like watching two things exist at the same time was more acceptable. And those two things were that I could grieve, but also I could understand that things are growing and going into a more magical space because the brick and mortar piece is completed itself. It's done its work. Um, wasn't sure about telling folks because I didn't want to disappoint anybody. I was like, as soon as I start telling people, they're gonna be upset, they're gonna cry, they're gonna come in the store and just lay on the floor and be like, I don't ever want to leave, don't go. And I did actually start to tell people, and I was a little surprised. I had a lot of support, but I also had a lot of people making it about themselves. And so I stopped telling people because I just, I needed to fully understand what was happening. And um, I don't like being given questions that I can't answer from a practical standpoint, right? Like, I don't expect to know everything, but a lot of those normal questions were coming, like, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Tell me who I need to go to now if you're not doing this. And I was like, I don't have those answers. And, you know, this is supposed to be a segue into teaching, was the other messaging that I was getting. And it was interesting as I told people, well, I'm going to teach you how to do what I do for yourself. There was a lot of like, I don't want to.
Mhm,
Like, I
mhm.
want you to do it, or I want somebody else to do it. So it was interesting to see all of these things play out. And so probably within the last 2 weeks, so you were talking about the morning moon, I completely went within, and I put a lot of messages on hold and stopped having a lot of conversations and just kind of um, self evaluated and allowed myself to grieve. So, as we were packing, because my partner and his amazing daughter helped me pack. My family came in, helped me pack. Even my oldest, my 12-year-old, was like, "You need me to carry that, mom?" And I'm going room to room. And as I move something away, I have a flash or a memory of, a ceremony that took place in that corner, or the time that we filled the shop up with like 30 people, and, the time that we had our grand opening, and one of my favorite mentors came by and she's like, "Oh, bless the space right now. It's all done." And it was there were so many things created in that space, and I had no idea how emotional it was going to be, because I can be very practical. I was like, this isn't the end, this isn't that we're not finished, the community is evolving. And so I then began to realize, as the emotions were coming forward, because it was literally highs and lows. I mean, I lost it on Sunday. I was like, um my poor partner was like, what do I do? Do I hold you? Do I but I realized that the emotion, the passion, the energy that was that. So while it was a store, it was retail business, it was a shop, it was a healing center, and we truly accomplished the goal of it being that, and that's why it was such an intense experience. um, so that's all that story. That's the big news, is that Crystal Cognizance is moving online in all regards. So It is going to be a place where you can shop online, and we'll do, sales from there. And then there'll be classes for folks to take, and healing journeys that they'll be able to go on. For instance, if anybody wanted to, they could join our meditation this evening. It's virtual. And so you can grab your headphones and your cushions and figure out how to meditate at home in your own way, because that's how I usually teach it. But yeah, that's where we
So
are.
as I've discussed here several times, and I apologize if this is your first time and you missed all that exciting working up to it. Eric and I closed our shop October 2nd was our last day. And we knew, I think it was the end of August,
Hmm.
that that's what we needed to do. And so we closed October 2nd, and I mean right away, October 3rd and 4th was packing up and getting everything to its new home. And I was blessed with tons of help. We had probably 15 people who were packing and moving and shifting and labeling and uh, helping out in phenomenal ways. But it was fascinating because we had been there for a little over 3.5 years. And to my mind, we had infused this building with so much positive energy and so much healing and so much love that it would be there forever. But I want to tell you that as things, like you said, everything had a memory, but as things left the building, it became increasingly clear that it was just a building.
Yep. Very
And
much.
it was strange, the energy that went out of the walls with the fixtures, so that when we were walking around in there after, pretty much everything was out, it was just, it had been an architect's office before us, but
Oh,
that had been months and months before us. It had been empty for a very long time. And it just felt like any other building as I was walking through. And my son walked in, and he lives locally and he had been to the shop quite a bit. He goes, "Wow, all the magic is just gone."
oh.
And it was weird that it just went bam, right back to baseline so quickly. And then almost immediately after that, Eric and I both got COVID. And so he was able to go in and do some cleaning, get everything, the rest of it out, and fill in some holes, because we had shit hanging all over the walls. And so he filled in holes, but I mean, he didn't get to paint, he didn't get to, scrub the walls. There was lots that he actually planned to do and didn't get to do because he got sick. And so we called our property managers and we're like, "Look, Pete, here's what's going on." And he's like, "Oh, no, we're good." And so our thought was, we're going to eat some of this security deposit because, um, we didn't get everything done. And
Right.
we had it all swept out. He did a lot of cleaning. I mean, he did a tremendous amount, but it wasn't as spit shined as we would have liked. And so, the 30 days or so go by. We haven't heard anything about this massive security deposit. And so Eric stopped by the office and was like, "Hi, we were just, oh, let me get your security deposit." He writes out the check for the full amount.
Wow.
And we're like, "Wow, what a blessing." And so just to us, that was the final shoe dropping. It's done, it's over, there's no more connection there. And we fully transitioned online now, which you're just, basically starting. We had always had an online presence. You always had an online presence. So for either one of us, it's not a huge undertaking. I mean, we've always been there. So it's just building on what was always there. But it is a new and different feeling when you're not tied to going to the store for providing services to people. And you and I both do remote work and are good at it. So we can work on people without them being present. You're going to continue to work on people with them being present. And so, yeah, we're doing the same thing, but kind of going in different directions. I was mentioning in one of our conversations this week that for me, it's about paring down and taking away some of the things I was doing. I think you're going to be replacing the things you were doing with other things. And so you're building up, whereas I'm kind of condensing downward, which is testimony to my advanced age. So
But the transition is I mean, there's a lot of commonalities in it, you know, even though I mean, I think we both kind of went through a small grieving period and, you know, had conversations with different folks that went different ways. And so um, you know, it doesn't matter how spiritually evolved you are, or like, you know, the kinds of practices that you have, there is a very human element with all of this. And you're right, I am, you know, moving into this sort of expanded place virtually, and then when I get an office, I'll be moving to, you know, support others from there. At the same time, you know, I'm also surrendering to what comes. I was teaching Reiki Master class yesterday, and in that class, one of the folks was talking about waiting for things to pivot, and it really got me thinking. You know, what does that look like? You know, and you do get the signs. It's either through customers or clients or in yourself. I remember a couple months back, Katrina, you were talking about your response to the work and how much that had shifted to let you
mhm.
know that you were sort of moving towards semi-retirement and changing how you approach things. And I can honestly say some of that was occurring for me as well. And finding the other piece of that being, I was drawn to empower it. Like, we've always been about empowerment, but there's more to that now as well. So
Yeah, I had over the last few months, I could still do what I wanted to do and be effective with it, but I was having to draw a lot more energy to do the same thing because it felt like things were winding down. You know, there was just this feeling of things starting to slow. And that was one of the first things that I'd picked up on that went, I wonder what's happening here. And we had you mentioned about people making it about them, and it is a very personal grieving thing. And we had people, and I know you had this too, where they came in and said, oh my gosh, I never knew this place was here. This is great. I can't wait to buy all of my shit here, and I mean my valuable items here. And then, you know, you have to say, well, actually we're closing in a week. And you just see their crestfallen, like, oh my god, are you kidding me?
yeah.
And we had people that had come to the store practically since we had some that had been at Denios with us. We had some that had found us in the first month or so. One of our people that would come in, a big dude, he looked like he was going to cry, and he said, you know, I never thought you would do this. I never thought you would do this. And I was confused, and I was like, Ryan, do what? And he said, close. And I said, Ryan, you never thought that we would close? He said, yeah, it just seemed like, you know, the store's so successful that you would just, you know, pass it on to somebody else and that it would continue. And I said, well, because the store was successful, I can retire and, you know, do more for me and take better care of myself. And there's also, this didn't come from this guy, but there was also kind of a prevailing thought of, if you can do this and if you're helping others, you are obligated to do this. You need
Mm.
to continue because you're providing a necessary service. So you should keep going no matter what.
Yep,
And
at your own detriment.
right. And it doesn't work that way. Incoming. There's a cat.
Cattail, cat butt.
Hi. Um,
Absolutely, it boggles my mind, but then also, like, I I think it gives us such a great lens to look at how um, people will only go as far as they can within themselves, right?
yes.
So in Ryan's case, it was hard to see past a certain point of
Mhm.
himself, and there's so much. I surprise, I think, is the word I want to
Mhm.
use
Mhm.
when you look at people that are in community and they come and they enjoy the space, and And then you realize, like, okay, their process stops here. You may have
Yeah.
thought it was going to go further.
Mhm.
There may even be a part of you that is like a little irritated by, like, hey, wait a minute, what if, I am a human being, not a tool.
Well, and their
um
thought is, "I'm having fun." What do you mean you're not having fun?
and
What do
this
you
idea
mean what do you mean this isn't what you wanna do until you die?
of success, being that you continue on into, until you've run things into the ground. It is, um it's interesting. I mean, if you talk to a business coach, a guru, people that are actually scaling and doing well in multiple avenues, they don't quit when things are bad. They shift when things are good. You don't wait until things are not sustainable anymore.
Yeah.
And especially not if it's your only deal, like a store. you
Mhm.
know I think if I had five businesses in the works, I'd maybe let it go on a little longer and then, peter out. But you just don't. And that was the case for Crystal Cognizance. We didn't have any issues. We simply, I say we because I always talked about me in the store as like one person. So
The royal
when I met
we.
my partner, he was like, what do you mean we? But the decision was made not on the basis of was this successful or was it not, but it was just purely about time. And, the lease was up and it was like, hey, okay, make the decision or
Yeah.
don't.
And I'm as guilty of it as the next person. I'm still pissed, and it's been over 2 years that our Sizzler Steakhouse closed. I drive past it and I'm really mad. I sit at home and think about, and I'm really mad because I want Sizzler and our Sizzler closed. And it was for good reasons. Sizzler was known for its buffet and it closed in 2020. I wonder if something happened in 2020 that made salad bar buffet difficult.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even when it makes sense, we still feel that loss as
Yep.
a consumer. And, we still respond. And so it is a kind of a two-way street there that we have to look at as far as the things that we grieve ourselves and the things that other people are grieving. It's an ending that has happened, and what comes next becomes the big question that everybody has. And that's the same, like you were saying, for clients. Well, what am I going to do now? And you mentioned people not wanting to do it for themselves. I mean, I've got friends that are like, dude, I know how to make brick dust, but I don't want to do it. I'll buy it from you. I'm not going to bang up those bricks. And so, yeah, we are consumers at our hearts. And if it's something, I don't want to bake a loaf of bread every single time I want bread. But if there stopped being bread, I would be really concerned.
Well, and sometimes that consumer piece goes from the tangible to the intangible, because like you were saying, we did have people that just found us, and one common word, one constantly used word with the association of crystal cognizance was, this is a safe space. This is a safe space to buy crystals. This is a safe space for me to be myself. This is a
Mhm.
safe space for, me to bring my family, to learn. And, well, I would say we were that 98% of the time. We weren't perfect. And the safety varied with, um, a lot of times folks that either didn't like me personally or didn't like my personality or, whatever. But it never had to do with the actual story. It was usually I was the problem. My Virgo ways were not acceptable. And so hearing that at first, I was like, maybe this is the universe saying, don't close. And then
Yeah,
it was
we
like,
did that
no,
too.
no, this is the universe telling you that you accomplished your mission, which
Hmm.
was to empower folks and create the crystal shop and the healing center that you couldn't find. And you did it. And you're the
Hmm.
people coming in here and saying that for the first time or the 105th time is simply to let you
Hmm.
know. And another cool thing that folks were saying, folks that knew we were closing, they were like, this had helped me so much and it changed my life, being able to come here. And but I know that this energy is not the building. To your point of, as things were leaving
Mhm.
Crossroads, the magic was leaving too. It was it was refreshing to hear that folks were not assigning everything that had happened to a building. I was probably like the largest person doing that, because I was like, these walls, this room, I open, healing portals here and we chanted over there. But folks were like, no, the crystal cognizance is going to live on in the hearts and minds of the community that was there. And then when we reconvene, be it virtually or at a retreat or whatever the case is, no time will be lost. So,
It's interesting how there's that how can I put it, like the chain links that happen that
mhm.
create new experiences off of endings. An example that I can think of right away, because like I said, our big question is what comes next? What is going to be next for Dahlia? What's going to be next for Katrina? Well, for me, I'm writing again, which I haven't been able to do in years because I now have time to write. I can sleep as late as I want. There's so many benefits. I could spend the whole hour just talking about that. But what do I do? How do I define myself? Which is what all of that really means.
Yes.
And we're Virgos, so we like to plan. We like to know, what am I going to be doing in a month? What am I going to be doing in 6 months or a year or 5 years? And I never, for instance, I'm coming back around to the other example, but back in last December, man, my internet, I got a really smoking deal, but I had to commit to a 2-year contract. I had no problem doing that. I couldn't imagine there not being Crossroads Metaphysical Store in 2 years. And here I was less than a year later, closing doors, paying an early out fee because I hadn't imagined that it would ever end.
Hmm.
So we tend to like to invest in things that are going to just always be there. And when we're told that we are the ones that need to make them go away, it's really terrifying, and it's like I described it before as a free fall feeling of what happens next. And you and I actually had that experience. I think it was about a year and a half ago. I'm not 100% positive because time is wibbly wobbly timey wimey for me.
Me
But
too.
you and I met when I was doing tea and crones with Corby Mitleid, who's a wonderful psychic. And we expected that to go on and on and on. And so I wanted to work with Corby. Corby wanted to work with me. We set up this program we were going to do. And at the last minute almost, she goes, "Oh, and I want to bring in this other person." And I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "No, I'm going to bring Dahlia on." I'm like, "What? This
Who
was
is
never brought up. Okay, fine, we'll do that." And all this is happening in my head. On the outside, I'm like, "Sure, Corby, let's do that." But on the inside, I'm like, "What the fuck, man? We're, we're just gonna bring in this total stranger that I don't know." And so you came on board, and I was just like freaky fangirl infatuated from the beginning and felt
Oh,
such a connection with you. We all did our thing, and then we did a show. It was actually, I think, our 13th show that we did, and it was called The Big Let Go.
yes.
And Corby had named it months in advance because she had the schedule of what all we were going to do. And we talked about letting go. We talked about knowing when something's done. We
Yeah.
talked about ways to manage that from a psychological and spiritual standpoint. It was a great show. And none of us, I don't know if Corby did or not, but you and I did not know that was going to be the last Tea and Crohn's show.
We didn't. We
We
had we
didn't.
had episodes planned
Yeah.
after.
And so stuff happened like really fast after that,
Yeah.
as like magic. And all I could think of was, "Oh shit, Dahlia's going to go away. Oh no, I can't have this." And you were in shock, and I was in shock, and we're both kind of grieving over what's happening. I'm like, "Dahlia can't, hi, honey.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to get my phone.
Dahlia can't go away. This cannot be." And so that was how Crossroads of Cognizance happened.
Yep.
And through Crossroads of Cognizance, you and I became so much closer and taught each other a lot of things. And it was just so, had we not done that and had we not stopped doing tea and Crohn's, we would not have had this.
Right. And
And so, yeah, so my point is that that's how those chain links set up so that
yes.
when you release something, even if it hurts and it's hard, it opens your arms for something else.
100%. And this I think we've talked about this a little bit with love. We've talked about it with jobs. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my as a deviation from the topic slightly, I met my now partner after letting go of an on and off again relationship that I knew the person for like 19 years. And 3 days later, my partner was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Hi, how you doing?" You know,
Oh, yeah,
or
yeah. So many people that
yep,
I'm doing a reading for them, and it shows clearly when I'm in a terrible relationship, I need to find somebody else. And it shows so clearly, and I know you see this too. You have to let go
of something.
of that relationship and be willing to release it. You can't just hop and expect it to work.
Right,
You
right. And
got to
so
release that
then
person.
this is why I was calling this the Big Let Go Part 3 because we had that the original episode of that in Tea and Crohn's, and then we had talked about the Big Let Go here once before, and
Mm.
then there is this third version now where I'm having my own experience,
Wow.
and it is I think it's important to evaluate like questions are important. People were kind of coming and being immediately like, I'm so sorry, this is so sad, etc. And it was like, well, yeah, it is, but ask me how I'm feeling, like, and let's do it day to day.
Right.
And it is an opportunity. One thing that I was trying to so in the letting go process, we always like to talk about what do we do, as healers, as professionals, what are we doing? First, I had to let myself shatter, completely break apart, because I don't do that very often. You can't all the time, right? And so I was like, well, I'm going to go through this full process, because whatever pours out is then not coming with me into the new space. So that's important. Allow yourself to shatter. Plan for self care. I know that when I'm upset, I don't eat. I just lose my appetite completely, or I reach for sugar. It's both extremes, never a middle ground. And so I had people making sure that I was going to eat, and had planned different things. The next piece of this was keep reiterating an affirmation that I adopted earlier this year, which was, I only see and receive opportunities. And so at every point that there could have been a loss, because I'm an expert pessimist. I know it doesn't come across on the show, but I'm an expert pessimist. And I was like, nope, we're going to turn that expertise. If you can see the bad, you can see the good. And then you can realize that neither needs a label. They're just things that are happening. And so, as that space was emptied, there were so many more things that I could say, hey, now I can actually go out and have lunch with friends. What? I don't have to be here by myself at the store. Or I could spend more time with my children, or I could, so there were a lot of opportunities coming forward. And then to your point of like writing books and things like that, I spent last night. So I went through, this is another part of the letting go process. I went through what's called a power retrieval. So I would say my grieving probably closed Tuesday evening. And then Wednesday came around, and I'm peeling these letters off the wall. And I was like, okay, now that everything is out of the space, let's just go ahead and do what's called a power retrieval. So, and I might have talked about this before, I don't know,
I don't
but
think so.
so in the power retrieval process, what we tend to do with memories is we assign a lot of energy to them. If I hadn't met this person, if I hadn't crossed this path, and we infuse and we assign and we create attachments to these things. And it's a natural human thing to do, but I was shown about 3 years ago that we can pull some of that back for when a change happens, when a transition happens. And it was shown to me 3 years ago when I had to do it for a friendship. And so, um, with this process, you go back to the memory, and if there are things that light up in the memory, so it may feel lit up, like there's a lot of energy there, or you may, if you're a visual person, you may see orbs of light in the memory itself. You start to breathe and reabsorb those things and see them moving into your being, moving into your body. And so I did that last night. And I started in the back room. I even went to the bathroom and was like, I don't know, I remember washing Olympia jars in here. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna take back the energy of doing that. And, making sure that the bathroom was pristine for when we had a guru come by, and, all the nervous energy of like, this bathroom must be perfect. And which is a silly thing to worry about, but hashtag Virgo. So then, going from the back room to the hallway to the healing space, and as I'm in this meditation and in this power retrieval that's taking place, I started to hear a message, and I wanted to share that on the show. So it was crystal cognizance was a grove slash tree with many branches. Each branch extended itself to those in need. And I could see it growing, and I could see the leaves, and I could see it being green. And then the tree itself went through this kind of wintering piece where the leaves started to fall off. And as that was happening, there were like ribbons being tied around the tree. And this is part of the vision. And those ribbons were kind of sealing off the energy. So each ribbon represented an event, a person, somebody significant, and it was like tying off an artery vein so that person could then keep their section of the energy and we could pull back ours. And the tree didn't die, but it's gone, it's wintered, it's gone dormant, it's asleep as the new phase is coming forward. And so the next iteration of kind of what was coming through, a new tree has been planted and it requires your full attention in order to be nurtured within the grove of your life's work. And so then they gave me a vision of like how fixated I was on this one tree that was crystal cognizance. And then I look around the tree and there's like empty space and like vast land where other trees will grow. And some trees will fall over, some will die, some will grow on to be other things, some trees will work side by side as a network, but none of this was meant to be that one singular focus tree. And so the vision was beautiful at the end of it all. Like all of the power had returned to me, and I asked that other people's power be returned to them, those that may have assigned crystal cognizance as, I'm not going to be able to do this without this space. I ask that, we never intended to collect that kind of energy because our message was empowerment, but people will do that. And so it was beautiful. It was amazing. Lots of tears. And then I couldn't sleep. Like, my body was like, the hell did you do? But in that not sleeping process, what I'm getting to is you were talking about being able to write a book. And in that power retrieval process, a lot of book energy was coming through. So we'll see that maybe part of
That's
the next.
nice. That's awesome. That's exciting. I had when Eric and I first started talking about closing Crossroads, it was just an idea we were kind of kicking around. Well, I wonder if we should, or what would that look like, or what would come, just kind of playing with the idea. From the minute we started talking about it, I would normally, as Virgo, have that grasping feeling of, oh God, well, where will all money come from? Oh God, well, who will I be without this? And oh gosh, I won't get to see any of my people. And there was just there would normally be this grasping thing, and what I felt instead was jubilant.
Mm.
I just, as soon as we started talking about closing the store, I could see Eric just, it was like he was almost turning into an old man in front of me, because I could just see the energy going out of him. And he was just like, oh gosh, what if that actually happens? You could just see the spirit just wanting to leave him.
Wow.
And so he and I had very different experiences regarding the closing of the store. I had to work very hard to be sensitive to all of the people who were sad about it. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm here going, yeah, it really sucks. It's terrible where it's going to be gone. And so I had a very different reaction. But one of the things about what's happening is that, and I think this is very common with loss, we come from that. I was on the edge of it, so I kind of got both worlds growing up, but I was the beginning of that participation ribbon thing,
Mm.
where everybody's going to get a participation ribbon so nobody feels bad. And it was the beginning of this aversion to feeling bad.
Mm.
Not that everybody hasn't always had an aversion, but for a while for most of our history, there was an expectation of grief. We knew that if we had 8 children, 3 were going to get to adulthood. We knew that as women, we might bury 2 husbands. There was just a sense of ongoing death around us, and loss and wars and pain. And so we got used to being sad. And then we reached a point, I would say after World War II, where people were, I'm just tired of this sad bullshit. I don't want to do it anymore. Let's do everything we can to, we will be happy. Let's be happy. And so there was almost enforced happiness, where if you're not smiling all the time, people would walk around going, smile, why are you feeling sad? You got everything. And so there's this expectation of happiness, and that gives us an aversion to things like grief and sadness and loss, so that when we do kind of even brush up against those, we feel disconcerted and weird and uncomfortable. And so we resist loss. We don't want anything to do with loss or pain. Whereas, like we were saying, it is a part of life. And when you are able to release, you do get a lot back if you're able to do that gracefully. Now, that doesn't mean you don't mourn. Doing it
No.
gracefully doesn't mean you don't grieve. But like with you, where you have this power retrieval, where you have the sealing off, I had to stop and think, okay, it really is sad that this is stopping. I wasn't sad for me. I was sad that Crossroads wasn't going to happen anymore.
Mm.
I wanted to still be able to go to Crossroads. When Eric and I created Crossroads, we created the metaphysical store we would want to go to,
Yes.
that didn't exist, that we had never seen. And we did that. It became that very, very quickly. And we were very proud of it. We're very happy with it. I wanted it to continue. I wanted to pass it on to somebody else
Mm.
who would be in a position to continue it. And that wasn't able to happen. So I was sad that that the Crossroads was going away. But I did a similar thing with a meditation and some prayer, and just saying, okay, what's my take on this? Underneath all these conflicting feelings of excitement to have my life back, so to speak, excitement for what comes next, but sad that Crossroads is going away, what should I be looking at? And what I got was that it did what it was meant to do for the
Yes.
people it was meant to do it for. And those people that came in, during that last week, it wasn't for them. Or maybe it was that, hey, your message is look up, pay attention to what's around you and what has been here for 3.5 years. And so, it's just an idea of, well, it wasn't for them. And I did a similar thing of the sealing off of, I'm grateful for all we were able to do. I'm grateful for what we could bring. I'm grateful for what all this did for me. And now we separate that out. A friend of mine who was Native American, this has been probably 20 years ago,
Mm.
told me about a story that her grandfather had told her, which was that we all come into the world with a basket of power eggs.
Okay.
And that as we grow, and as we have life experiences, we give our power eggs to certain people who are
Mm,
important to us in certain situations that are important to us. And pretty soon we have no power eggs left.
mm,
And when that happens, we will become depleted. We will become tired. Our spirits will not flourish. And so every now and then you have to go back throughout your life in prayer and take back your power eggs from
yes.
people who are no longer in your life, people who aren't looking out for your best interest, people who no longer basically deserve your power. And deserving of power isn't a testimony to them, it's a testimony of the evolution of the relationship of this is not where we are right now. And I see so many people giving their power eggs to people who have not been in their lives for 30 years
Mm,
or old situations where they're still connected through resentment and anger and frustration over things that happened a long time ago that are no longer physically in their lives. So they're living their life in the past. And one of the best ways to move forward is to release those attachments to the past and look forward. It doesn't mean, you know, uh, um, it doesn't mean validating what other people did. It
right.
means letting go of that attachment to that outcome that has already happened and moving forward. And so, with the loss of our stores, so to speak, or the releasing of our stores, the releasing of that identity, the releasing of some of those people, it becomes I release my attachment unless it is meant to continue.
Mm,
And so that's kind of where I had left it was, just it's not that I took back my power eggs um, from Crossroads because it'll always have some of them. I'm proud of what we did. I leave my some of my energy there, but I needed to pull back enough for me. So I don't know if I'm explaining that well or not, but that's kind
you
of
were. Yeah, you absolutely were. And it sounds very similar to what I did and what I went through, and so I'm what I like about the relatability of the two spiritual practices is that our audience can now kind of decide what resonates. If you like if you like eggs, my association
yeah,
with eggs, thanks to you, is removing negative
Olivia.
energy. It's Olympia. So, you know, nothing is ever really done. That's not how physics works, right? And so
Right.
these things go on to evolve. And you said, "Oh, this was graceful," and I was like, "Oh, it didn't look graceful." The people that were closest to me, they were like, "Okay, have you hit the loony bin?" And I was like, "I don't know. I might go vacation there because I don't feel good right now." But I can honestly say, like you were saying with the gratitude piece, I was so grateful to be able to see and have the experiences. Anybody who visited that, is watching this broadcast live or on replay, know that I do not take for granted anything that we did together. And I love you guys, and we're going to keep rocking it out. I mean, um, some folks have moved on, and that's beautiful. Others will come back and visit, new spaces or just check in and say, hey. And, we're all going to change the world in our own unique way, and one building isn't going to be the foundation of that. It's going to be so much more. So new things, onward and upward, big let goes. And it's gracefulness is sometimes messy. um
Oh,
gratitude.
that I love that. We should have t-shirts that say that. Grace is sometimes messy.
It
And
is.
we like you were saying, we don't love the people any less. We don't
No.
think any less of our interactions. It's just that I being 61, I have had to embrace loss quite a bit in my life.
Hmm.
And I have done it with grace and I have done it violently. and everything in between. And what I have found is that when you are resisting so hard and fighting so hard to keep that status quo, to not have anything go away and just say, no, I reject this.
Mhm.
We are not going to stop this. As things progress, they're going to come to that outcome regardless.
Yep, it's gonna happen.
And it's just so much easier when you are still in a position of negotiating, when you are, oh, yeah, yes, Heidi. Wait, we never know, because look what happened with Corby and Tia Crows. Yes, we presume to be here next week.
Yeah,
But
we had that conversation already.
yeah, but I think that it just has happened so often that I can say with authority that if you are able to just release when you're getting the message, that it goes so much better
Yeah,
than if
absolutely.
something just says, nope, we told you. And how many times do people see this? They've been getting hints for 3 years that they need to leave this relationship,
Yeah,
and they don't, and it ends in catastrophe.
yeah,
And yeah, so, it's always good to pay attention to spirit when spirit speaks, to do it with style, but at the same time, understand you're still experiencing a loss. You're still experiencing grief, and to make space for that human reaction.
yeah. And those in the splash zone, just put on your raincoat. It's
Yeah, you'll
there's
be all right.
nothing for you to fix. There's nothing for you to do. Just
My mom used
it
to say,
will
walk it
pass.
off, you'll be all right.
Yep. I think it's so interesting. What I love about this show is that we get the spectrum of experience. So you had to deal with a lot of loss. I can honestly say, I mean, like my grandmother, my mom's mom is still alive. We didn't have a lot of deaths. My great grandfather died when I was in high school. So, my grandparents are still here. I know people that don't have parents that are still here. So, loss was never, something that I was able to had to process, let me say that, had to process,
Mhm.
except in pets, which is, I mean, in some ways, sometimes
Oh,
equally as
that's
hard.
really
So,
tough.
we're not
Yeah.
minimizing that, but it was that animal bond versus the human bond.
Yeah.
And so I have had to process loss in a different way than you. And you've had the full spectrum of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I
So,
love about the
yeah.
show.
My
You
mom and
get
dad both passed early. Like my dad was 51, my mom was 60. Um, I've had divorces. I've had,
yeah, I've had to,
friendships end catastrophically, horribly. I've been fired. I've had to relocate. I've been evicted. I've had every, and then, the house burning down. I've had every kind of,
yeah.
almost every kind of loss, with the exception of, and I hope to never experience, is the loss of a child.
Yeah.
And I've had lovers that died. I mean, there's just been a lot of experience there with the big let go, and so I'm grateful for all that I've learned from that. But yeah, I would have been really thrilled to have maybe had half of what that was.
And to sort of, package it all, right? The big let go has to happen for everybody, and it's multiple times. This is why I don't think we have just one awakening in our lifetime. I think we have
uh,
multiple that
it's like a
rattle you
bad night's
big,
sleep. You just keep getting woken up.
right? And I had a dear friend remind me that the opposite energy of whatever the energy of your let go is, the intensity of it has an equal and opposite incoming for you. So I would
Mhm.
say, leaving you guys with that, if you too are going through a letting go process, embrace it. You have people collectively that are going through it with you. It's that season. We're still mourning. We're still burying. We're still, the stillness of the night doesn't mean that you're alone. It just means that it's space for you to process. That's all it means. So, with that, we will put this show back in the fridge and get it out next Thursday. Still on time, Heidi. No worries. We'll be back next Thursday for Crossroads of Cognizance. And I hope everybody has a great evening. Bye, everyone.